pleasure to introduce our moderator, Hardik Bhatt. Hardik is the CEO of SDI Presence, a leading IT solutions firm that also co-founded Exchange, a technology apprenticeship program connecting local talent with meaningful opportunities here throughout Chicago. And when he isn't at his day job, Hardik wears many hats for us at Chicago Innovation. He's a board member, a sponsor, a judge, a longtime friend, and the perfect person to lead this discussion. So please join me in welcoming Hardik Bhatt.
These guys make it so tough to follow their act. So I'm going to start with this, a researcher, an educator, a practitioner, and a lawyer walked into a bar. And this is not a joke. This is our panel. So if I invite, they're all done with the bar, they're up here. So if I could invite Chris, Elise, Deepika, and Matt up to the stage. While they are taking their seats here, make sure that you're all watching us because we have never done a panel on a couch before, and we don't want to fall asleep. So we have Chris Hammond. Chris is the researcher that I was talking about. Chris is the professor of computer science at Northwestern University. He's also the director of Center for Advancing Safety of Machine Intelligence. Those of you that have been in Chicago for a long time, you would also know that he's a co-founder of Narrative Science, the startup that uses still artificial intelligence and journalism. So welcome, Chris Hammond is sitting in the middle, in the second couch there.
Thank you.
Next to him to the right is Deepika Dugirala. Deepika is the CTO for Alight Solutions. She leads the tech company's technology organization, drives the AI, automation, digital transformation. And before that, she served as an SVP for global technology platforms for TransUnion. And she was also a VP for technology and for the SAP mobile platform, also at Motorola Solutions. So welcome, Deepika.
Thank you.
To the left of Chris is Matt Hafter. Matt is the lawyer on the panel. Matt is a partner at Thomson Coburn. He provides strategic, practical, legal counseling. His clients range from early and seed stage growth companies to like Series A, Series B. He also works with large corporations, works on M&As, and like basically, somebody who has seen a lot of technology pass by, used, like change hands from small company to large companies, and someone who's perfectly poised to tell us, legally where we are with this whole AI thing. And then last one, but not the least, to my right, is Elise Awad. She is the president and CEO of DeVry University. And Elise is, she joined DeVry in 2004 as an admissions advisor, grew up to be the COO, and became the first woman president and CEO of DeVry in 2023. And then she's also a founder of Chief. It's a private network designed specifically for women in leadership roles from rising levels VPs to CEOs. So please give a warm round of applause to our panel. As I said, we've got an educator, we've got a lawyer, we've got a researcher, we've got a practicing CTO. So we are going to get pretty much, all of those various angles of AI covered. Just a quick housekeeping items. If you haven't turned your phones silent, please do that so we don't get to hear your music, your favorite music. But I will ask you to pull out your phones when there is audience poll time. You have a little brochure on your chair that has QR code that I'll ask you to scan when it's time to take that audience poll. We are going to have a few questions that I'm going to ask these panel, but I also have time for audience questions, and unlike other panels, we are not going to wait till the end. We're going to have a couple of segments of opening up the floor for questions in between. The way we are trying to do this is, first half is going to be everything from the past to today, to present, what has happened in AI. Second half is going to be now what's going to come down the pike. So that's how also the audience polls. are going to be. So, those that ask questions, if you go over 30 seconds, I'm going to interrupt you. Same thing for the panelists. I've said, keep your answers crisp so that we can cover as many questions as we can. So let me start with the basic question, and that applies to all of you. Like when I hear AI, my daughter asked me yesterday, like, you are going to moderate this panel, what do you use AI for? And I said, there's a lot of things I can use, or I do use for the main thing is, I make sure my emails look good before I send out. I think of ChatGPT, I think of Gemini, I think of Claude. But, let me ask you guys, when you hear AI, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What do you use AI for in your work or in your personal life? Maybe, Chris, because you are sitting in the middle, let's start with you.
I use it for almost everything. Mostly, and this is an important thing, I'm driven by a basic notion, and that is, it's a quote from Alan Kay, the guy who invented the mouse, and it's a lovely notion, and that is, don't try to predict the future, or actually the best way to predict the future is to build it. And so I spend most of my time thinking about what can we do with the technologies at hand. And there are people who are doing studies of the impact of the technologies. There are people who are worried about, in particular, software engineering, use of the technologies. And for me, it's like, no. There are things I want in this world. I want to better educate students. How can we take these technologies and wrangle them into faculty members instead of annoying smart kids who are living in your dorm who come in and tell you how to do things every day? So for me, it's pervasive, but it's also pervasive with regard to, here are the places I could build something. Here's the next thing to build, the next thing to build. And I have to admit, we work on projects across the university, and there are so many things that we can do for so many researchers and so many companies that really are based upon, please tell me what you need. Tell me what you want, instead of, oh, I'm going to force something on you. Mm-hmm. And so that, for me, is the driver right now.
That's a great, again, you're thinking from the faculty, and how can that be leveraged better for research and all. Deepika, how about you as a practicing CTO?
Say that again?
Deepika.
Oh. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, you know what? Look, AI has been around forever, right? From rule-based systems to, predictive models. Narrative science was basically doing AI, still does, I think the difference is that now AI is more accessible, right? That's why it's on everybody's tongues. It's because it's not for the software engineers and the data scientists and the statisticians to be able to work with it. It's all of us. And I think that that's the beauty, and that's what kind of creates opportunity for us in industry, in the business. As a CTO, it's two key things that I observed immediately. The first is it was an opportunity where the organization is primed for change. Everybody's curious, people are nervous that they're going to lose their jobs, they at the same time want to use it and are fascinated with what it can do. So through technology, we can drive organizational change in terms of how we work, what we do, what our products are. And then that builds into the second one, which is truly driving innovation, right? Embedding it into, we're not in the business of creating or training the models, we're deploying these models and we're using them within workflows, within processes in our systems to be able to bring a level of intelligence, to bring a level of guidance for the end user along the way. So
I think one of the things that you touched on, Deepika, that is interesting, we've heard this a lot, at least in the last 6 months, maybe 9 months, is AI is out to get jobs, or reduce jobs, or something like that. But I was, some of those of you today saw the announcement from IBM, along with the governor, that they are basically going to hire 750 positions in Chicago for the Quantum Park, but also for AI and tech jobs. And I was on a roundtable with Arvind Krishna and some of the other CEOs. And Arvind Krishna was very clear that in fact he is looking to hire more entry-level positions because of AI, not he's trying to reduce those. So we'll see how that whole thing pans out. But we have an educator. Why am I saying what's going to happen and what we need to? What do you think when you hear AI as the CEO and president of an education institution?
I have been obsessed with AI since many years ago, before AI was cool. And I'll say, as an educator, I'm thinking about it in two different ways, right? How do I transform the learner experience, prepare learners for an AI-driven world, because that's where we're at right now, right? It's not even where the puck is going, it's where it's at. And at the same time, look, as an educator, there's a huge reality, right now is the cost of education is sometimes, out of reach for people. And, we've got to think about ways to leverage technology like AI to, break that cost compromise because, inflation's a real thing. It costs more money to service students in education and, I think that's industry agnostic, right? And so, transforming the learner experience and achieving digital and operational excellence is how I'm looking at it. But I'm very cautious too because as an educator, we want to make sure that we're teaching students to use AI in a way that's responsible and that makes them marketable on the other end of that because, we talked briefly a few weeks ago, there's, AI slop and it's real. And so, when students graduate, you don't want them facing off to an employer and not, having that level of, I love this, by the way, Luke and team, AI plus IQ. Like, I could not agree more, right? Human intelligence, the durable skills. So there's a technical side of this, there's a durable side of this. And so we look at it both ways, and we've got to think about, leveraging it throughout the student experience because that allows us to keep the cost of education down. Lots of use cases for that.
There you go. So you're thinking that if a student graduates with a lot of use of AI, they are going for an interview and the interviewer asks a question, they'll say, hold on, let me see what AI says?
We've all seen those reels, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's not, there is a real thing around, skill atrophy and over-reliance. And so, look, I made a bold move in February and my chief academic officer looked at me like I had four heads and I said, we are going to go out and say 100% of our courses are going to have AI fluency and AI skill building. I don't care what discipline, I don't care what course, every single one of those courses. And it's not just use ChatGPT, submit assignment, get the grade. No, it's have that faculty member look at the output and get that student to really think about whether it was good or not. Was that quality? Use your critical thinking skills, use your communication skills. Practice makes perfect. I'm a runner. I still, have not qualified for Boston, by the way, but I'm not giving up hope, but like practice makes perfect, right? And so the more you get them to interact and leverage those durable skills, the better they're going to be on the other end.
Absolutely. Matt, what do you think when you hear AI?
Well, I'm a little bit embarrassed because my thoughts are decidedly less lofty and sophisticated than everybody else's, but the two things that come to mind for me are number one, liability, and number two, Netflix.
Of course.
We, at the office, most mornings we play AI bingo to see which law firm now is reported to cite a case that was in fact a hallucination, which goes to the IQ portion of our discussion. And Netflix, because when I've been able to use AI effectively, I get to go home and catch a show on Netflix. But the reason that works is because I bring a human element to it, which has decades of experience doing what I do. I know how to ask the right questions, and I know how to direct the AI tool to give me what I need. For example, if I ask the AI tool to draft me a software license, what I'm going to get back is going to be junk, worse than junk. If I ask the AI tool to draft me a sentence defining a particular term or authorizing something in particular, I get a really good answer, and that saves me time, but it requires me, a person, a human being with that kind of experience and hopefully expertise to be able to steer the AI tool in the direction that will be helpful for us.
That's great. I mean, as you can see, this is a panel that actually brings all different kinds of views, but there is a connectivity that if you look at, when Chris talked about, he said he's thinking about faculty and how they can leverage AI, but when you go to Deepika, she thinks about efficiency as a technologist. How can she bring efficiency into the organization? When you hear Elise, you will hear from her that, she wants her faculty to learn AI so that they can understand what the students are doing, but also get the students ready for that on the IQ side of it. And then obviously Matt wants to save all his clients from all the liabilities. We don't, we have to be very, very. So now I want you to take out your cell phones, get to your camera, scan the QR code, and there'll be a question that'll come up. I'll open the question, and you can start answering. I'll see if we have about 300 people in the audience. I'll stop at, at right number and let you know. The question is, what do you use AI most today? Do we have any background music that we can play?
While you're doing that, to one of Matt's comments, there's this odd thing with regard to the technology we have right now, and that is it does wonky stuff. And I can't believe that there's a firm in the country that doesn't know not to have the systems really give you citations. But right now, the way we are with this technology, it's as though somebody gave you Excel and said, oh, and every once in a while, it will just make a mistake in the formulas you give it. And you won't know when, so you have to check all your math all the time. There is a trick, though. If you boldface numbers, it won't make that mistake. And you're like, what? Wow. And that's a thing where we have to, and this is a demand we have to make on the vendors, and that is the notion that systems that make outrageous mistakes, that don't give us the notion of certainty, that argue with us about the mistakes, those are no longer appropriate. We actually know how to fix the technology and make it not do that. And I know everyone appreciates being able to go to a model and ask a question and have it come back with, that is such a brilliant question. You are so smart. You're good looking. I've always loved you. And then give you a wrong answer. Is like insane. And it's time for us to actually pick up for me, I think this is super important, to pick up the mantle of, no, this is the way it should be. This is what I want. Yep. Here are the tasks I care about. And it's not just I'm utilizing the technology, it's time for us to start driving the next steps in the technology in terms of applications, in terms of building systems that are much more attuned to who we are.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. And as I see, here I see 61% of the audience does what I do.
Emails. Write
better emails. But then there's also 23% use that for software development, 8% for vacation planning. That's good. 6% for completing course assignments.
Oh.
Those who are in DeVry University, don't tell her that you go there. And 2% don't use at all. I think we are hoping that we can convert those 2% to be users. So let's, I'm going to come to the audience momentarily, but I have a question, Chris. You talked about, you talked a little bit about how you can boldface numbers and it can avoid mistakes. But, I've been in technology space for 30 years now. I have not seen the pace of change of technology, what we have seen. Like somebody I was in a discussion with said that ages ago this thing happened, and they said it was January 2026. That's how quickly. That's how quickly technology is changing. So, Chris, the question is, where are we today, do you think, compared to where we were 6 months, 12 months ago? How have things evolved, and where we are today when it comes to, if you think, take yourself back 12 months ago?
Well, even 6 months ago, two things. One, we've seen an absolute asymptotic rise of the ability to develop code. So code development is through the roof, and we have to figure out how to teach students where, I mean, it's, how do you teach someone how to do something when they have a box on their desk that does the same thing better than they do, better than their professors do? How do you do that? And I think there are ways to do that and that are fairly straightforward. But the big change over the last 6 months is agentic. The idea that we'll stop thinking about big monolithic problems, bring them down to tiny little problems, and then control the outputs. And what's interesting about that is that we have a new set of issues arising. So hallucinations were one thing, but violation of policy because you didn't tell the agent what the policy was, that's a new thing. And you see every single day. You look for law firms that make citation problems. I look for agentic collections that, I decided I was going to rewrite this code. The first step was, of course, to delete the code base and the data set. Oh my God, was this in production? My bad. And we see that over and over again. And it really comes down to people not yet, because we are it's so easy to load them. It's so easy to construct them. It's so easy to think we control them. But there's this entire world of implicit that is not part of our instruction set. And so it doesn't occur to us to say, oh no, this mission to go beyond Jupiter and look at that monolith, that's really important. By the way, in general, we don't kill people. And if we just said that to Hal, he wouldn't have killed everyone on the spaceship. And that's really where we are really good at saying, do this, but we always forget to say, don't do this.
Right.
And I think there are best practices that need to be developed that can fix that immediately. And that's the notion of treating these things as though they're almost new employees. And when you have a new employee, I'm going to see if this is, I'm going to go to the audience for this. What do you do if you have a new employee, it's day one, and they go through a process? What do we call that process?
Onboarding.
Onboarding. And what you do is you say, here's the industry, here's your job. By the way, here are all the federal regulations we do not want you to go against. And here are the mistakes that we know can be made, and we don't want you to make them. And have that be part of what we say to these things, because we now have language as a programming language. And that's what's so damn compelling.
Speaking language as the programming
Oh,
language.
yeah. But we need to learn how to say, in that moment we're about to leave, we're going to, by the way, Bob down the hall is annoying. Don't kill him. Or you can argue with him, but don't kill him. And that's the place we are, making sure that we've got the positive and avoiding the negative. And that's a hard one.
But that's an age-old problem. You know how to speak doesn't mean you know what to speak also. Yeah. It takes practice to say what right things to say. Deepika, he mentioned agentic AI. He mentioned the ability to build something very quickly as a CTO. How do you manage that? I mean, you've got 1,000 people with access to Claude Code building something that you don't even know about. How do you manage that as a CTO?
Yeah, while at the same time, to everybody's point here, creating that activation in the company is important because that's where the new ideas are really starting to get some traction. I think it's all about bringing the governance, bringing the standards, bringing some structure to it. So, the way we did it at Alight, for example, is everybody does have access, right? We did an AI literacy thing a year and a half ago where everybody in our company got some level of AI training. Now, depending on who you are, that looks different because you may be at a different level of sophistication. And then within our SDLC, in terms of agents getting deployed or software getting deployed, we actually built a framework that ensures some of the guardrails are in place, some of the policies are in place. We work with healthcare data, so it's important that we protect the privacy, data that is used in a very clear, observable way. So really building a framework around it so that when people use AI to deploy something, the rules are already provided to it within that framework. that we've got clear observability and traceability that gets deployed alongside it. Training and, and the biggest piece is, and this applies in education as well, is I don't think AI is where the ideas come from. The ideas still have to come from people. So I try to tell everyone.
That's where the IQ comes in.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where the IQ comes in. AI is not your first draft. You're gonna have to create your first draft. And I do tell developers, I don't hire you for your syntax. I hire you for your ability to solve problems and to think about the complex scenarios and to keep alight and our users safe. And those are all things you need to think about and you need to look for in the code. So I think it's both how we approach it, and then it's also how we can create the frameworks and the guardrails in place rather than shut it down.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing, building a framework, building the guardrails, but also remembering that it starts with IQ, then goes to AI. And then talking about IQ, that's where the education comes in. Elise, I see a two-pronged opportunity here. One is, institutions have to change, education institution. For example, how you operate as an institution, organization has to change. But also, what you teach as an education institution also has to change, because you cannot continue to teach exactly what you are teaching, because things are changing very quickly. How do you keep pace with kind of a two-pronged change?
Good question. This brings me back to December of 2025 when I decided that on my Christmas break I was going to write a very provocative op-ed. And so I did, and the title was, and by the way, this was inspired by all the rhetoric and the headlines that I'm reading and hearing, conversations with students and our advisors. And the title was, Will College Exist in 2050? And my answer was, not the way it looks like today. It will look different. And what was a percentage of it? I'm not asking you to look this up, but there was of people using their,
assignment
yeah.
turn in.
And there's
6%,
only
sorry,
there's
2%
only
don't use
but
6%.
there's not many students in this room. Think about, go ahead and survey a university student population, much higher than that. And so back to your point, Deepika, I do believe that we've got to make sure that we're teaching students to problem solve and think on their own and use AI to iterate. And I fear that we are, missing that in some cases. Now, there's a two-sided marketplace for DeVry. It's, direct to the student, and then we have 3,000 organizations that we work with. Some of you are partners in this room. And I sit on discovery calls, and I listen, and I hear the question from my team, what do you want? What type of upskilling do you need? I just need to teach people how to use AI. And there's like no depth in that answer. And so I said to myself, I think it's something that's really difficult to respond to as an employer, because this is so new. There's billions of dollars in venture capital. It's like the race to lead and to scale. And I fear that implementation can go wrong from the legal side, but also the critical thinking side, and which then ends up being we don't need you if you're just going to give it, the output's just AI, right? And so I asked the team, develop a AI skills assessment, and let's deploy that across these organizations and figure out what they really need, and then let's build the solution. And so I think that if more and more educators think about that, and that's my point of, will college exist in 2050? I think it's going to have to look different. AI is here. 3 years ago, I thought to myself, what do we do about this? And now it's like, how do we lean into this? So
that's an important thing for an education institute. How do they lean into this? Because they're going to get the next generation trained, educated, get ready. So it's a very important thought. Matt, I want to come to you. You heard, Chris say that AI needs to be told not just what to do, but what not to do. Seems like your job is that too, like telling all of us what not to do. But again, from the legal's perspective, I see a kind of this whole. We think about the regulations. and all of those. Do you think it's keeping pace with the innovation?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. The pace of capital flowing into the field and smart people constantly innovating and asking good questions about what the future could bring means that regulation can't possibly keep up, partly because you're dealing with a cohort of politicians who don't have technical backgrounds and frankly don't understand it at all and are possibly reluctant to get the professional advice that they need. But on that topic, I've heard AI described, anthropomorphized, as a very eager summer intern who has a puppy dog-like desire to please and will go scurrying all over the library, virtual or real, finding the answer and doesn't know enough to make sure it's the right answer, maybe stops down the hall and kills your neighbor, things like that. But more seriously, on the question of rules, a rules-based framework, most of those rules are telling us what not to do. As lawyers, we have our own ethical rules that are very clear-ish on how we as lawyers can use and must be careful about AI. In terms of the regulatory framework, we have a set of races going on. We have the race between 50 states to develop, each state to develop their own AI regulatory scheme, and then we have the states versus the federal side of it. And the challenge is to break through the usual stagnation of any kind of a political institution and to reconcile different ideologies. In many cases, the states are leaning towards more regulation to protect their own population, to implement their state's public policies. And while nothing has been legislated yet, certainly the administration has put out executive orders pointing the direction towards what it would describe as less regulation. Perhaps a cynic might say they're trying to implement regulation to achieve their own results. But essentially, from the federal perspective, at least the executive branch wants to preempt the state regulation. They want to occupy the field, and they want that field to be a very wide open field and free of algorithms that supposedly discriminate or that are designed to get a certain answer that has political ramifications. So any entrepreneur who's working on developing an AI tool is going to have to think about, and any user of a tool is going to have to think about 51 different legal jurisdictions to try to comply with. The solution to that is the feds haven't done anything, and you could wait and see. If anything, if they do anything, it's going to be less burdensome of a set of regulations. And as far as the states go, pick the most regulated state, the one state or two states with the most extensive regulatory scheme, comply with those, and there's a very strong likelihood that if you're in compliance with California, let's use an example, you'll be pretty good across the rest of the country.
So if I'm an entrepreneur or somebody who's building AI solution that's trying to sell, I'm building it in Illinois and trying to sell in Texas and California, do I have to look at all three regulations for these three states and federal, or just Illinois and federal?
Well,
I'm getting you a free advice, remember that. This is your ticket's worth.
You can for the moment at least, you can safely ignore the federal. And in terms of what state to comply with, if you're operating an AI platform, chances are it's going to be used nationwide. And you can't possibly keep track of 50 developments in 50 states, both from the legislative side, the executive side, administrative regulations, and so forth. So You will, if you're here in Illinois, you are going to have to worry about Colorado, California, Texas, and everywhere in between for compliance purposes. And that's the underpinning of why the practical strategy is just to go to the most regulated state and build a compliance system that is based on that, and then apply that across the country with perhaps variations as necessary. But the idea of having to build up a staff just to keep track of it all, let alone programmers to program it all, is just not practical, it's not workable.
Got it. All right, I want to open this up for the audience to ask. I'll take 2 questions, and I see one hand up there. Keep the question from past to present. Don't ask a question about future. I still hold the right to ask that question, those questions. So I saw the first hand going up with the gentleman in blue sweater or jacket? Black, okay. The microphone's coming to you. It is on.
Oh, okay. So talking about creators, so let's say you are creating a product using AI for consumption from a client. Is that open to regulatory considerations, or is the regulatory considerations just really for the platform creator?
And can you introduce yourself while Matt thinks about it?
Yes, I'm Matt Gilmore,
Oh, a fellow Matt.
Hub International.
That's a great question, and the answer is both.
Yes.
Or yes. The creator of the output developed and developed by the AI tool that you are using is your responsibility and how you deploy it. And in addition, if you are working with an AI developer who's behind the curtain and they are doing something wrong, that's to say, perhaps building an algorithm that results in discriminatory practices, as the consumer-facing distributor and user of that, you may have some liability as well. So we can get to this later, but that's why it's, as a consumer, as a user, I should say, of AI tools, you're going to want to have all kinds of very AI-specific warranties. You're going to want to have the ability to audit and receive reports on compliance and have an understanding of how the black box was actually put together.
All right, one more question, lady in red.
Thank you. I'm Sandra Gesing. I'm the Executive Director of the U.S. Research Software Engineer Association. And I get often the question from students now who are like, oh, I'm going into research software, so I don't have any future. And I'm like, you have a future, but do you have really a phrase for me to tell them like how we counter industry who tells them that they are not needed anymore?
I'll start and I'll take that, and then anybody else wants to chime in. This is what I mean by rhetoric and fear, right? Look, I wake up every morning, I read articles, and there are headlines out there that say, X company, and it's a big organization, laid off thousands of employees because AI is taking over. Look, we have AI platforms across our entire learner journey, and I don't see one where we don't still need the human in the loop yet. So I believe it's rhetoric. Now, that does not calm the fears of the students, right? And so I think it's about, like, how do you make that student marketable? How do you make that person, as AI-proof as possible? Medical billers and coders, there's, conversation out there that they're not going to be needed anymore, and that's just simply not true. They might need fewer. So how do you make yourself more marketable in the age of AI? And I go back to the technical skills on top of the critical thinking skills and the durable skills.
That's fantastic. Anybody else want to take that?
Yeah, so we're dealing with this with students who are thinking of becoming software engineers, and they realize that the things are at threat. There are two things. One, companies started getting rid of software engineers because of AI, because they wanted to get rid of software engineers in general.
Exactly.
So they wanted to, you know, they were getting themselves lean. But the second thing is that the reality is that fingers to code is one skill. The syntax of a programming language is one skill. But the ability to look at the world and say, oh, there's a person with a problem. I'm going to talk to that person with the problem. I'm going to figure out what their problem is. I'm going to realize that they've got their problem wrong. I'm going to help them figure out what the real problem is. I'm going to deconstruct that problem into pieces. I'm going to figure out an effective way to, all of this getting closer and closer and closer to fingers to code. And you go through a whole process of problem solving, of testing, of understanding what you need to do before you do it. And the danger is people who think that you just articulate the first thing you heard, and magic will happen. And it will happen, and it'll be magnificent. And it won't really work. And you won't know how to fix it, or it won't work in 5 weeks, and you're going to get fired. And it's living in a world where our job is to elevate what we tend to call soft skills, which are the hardest skills in the world, and that is communication, teamwork, problem decomposition, all these things. Elevate those to the surface, and those become the drivers.
Exactly.
And then code is like,
Yeah.
That's so. What we are hearing is AI will elevate IQ, or the need for IQ.
Yes.
We'll take one more question and then we'll go to the audience poll here in the front.
I have an issue I'd like to address. I'm an executive recruiter and I specialize in communications. Many people in communications have had their jobs eliminated. What kind of resumes do I now get? What kind of writing samples do I get? AI generated. And they all look the same.
AI slop.
Well, I can tell you that the creativity that goes into human brain development is this tool that needs acceleration. And I want to see real, authentic writing that is not supplemented by AI, because it slips into everything. And then everybody's samples start to look the same. When I look for talent, I want best in class. So how can we solve this problem together?
Amen. And by the way, we need to talk because, Lynn, I see it all the time. And, you know, this is where, any marketers in the room, you don't want to be vanilla, right? You don't want your message to be vanilla. And there are so many marketers out there that are sending their messages out that they all look the same. So how do you differentiate your product? How do you differentiate your service? Back to communications, right? It all sounds the same. Personally, I want someone with a journalism background at this point, someone that knows how to write pre-AI, because it's a real thing, especially in higher education. And for me, communications is important. As a president and CEO, I want strong communicators and writers below me, because that's our brand.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you to pull out your phone again. There is another poll. Now we are pivoting to the future. And the question is, what's your prediction for AI's impact 12 months from now, which is ages from now? And the choices you have is it'll be a major productivity breakthrough across industries, incremental improvements, but not majority disruptive, widespread disruption to jobs and workflows, let's see, game-changing leaps we are unable to predict right now. The machines have taken over, humans retreat underground. Let's see, I see 65, 75. Wow, it's moving quickly. I think I'm getting a vibe here. It's more incremental improvements. Let's see. Game-changing leaps is taking over. No, incremental improvements are back again.
It's like being at the racetrack watching
Yeah,
this.
it's like, exactly. All right, I think we've got 150 responses in, and 31% is saying incremental improvements. 24% are saying major productivity breakthroughs, 20% game-changing. There are 6% who are saying the machines will take over and the humans will go underground. I definitely want to see them at the bar after this. So as we talk about this, just question to all of you, in the last 12, since ChatGPT came out, first ChatGPT came out, took the lead instantly. Gemini came out and then took over the number of consumers and took the lead. Then Claude came out. Suddenly everybody was like, oh, what happened? Claude came out here. They took the lead. So it's looks like a PGA leaderboard. Keeps changing every hole. Do you think it's going to settle down? Chris, anybody who want to take on, what do you think going on?
It has been a wild ride. And people are like, oh, what are we going to do? It changes all the time. It's moving so fast. In general, it's moving so fast because it doesn't work. I mean, if you thought that if there was a genuine AI enterprise solution that is to something that did not need to be looked at and evaluated by human eyes, if that was complete, the game would be over. I mean, but we don't see that. There's no enterprise solutions. And the companies have never been, until recently, working on enterprise solutions. They've been working on artificial general AI, artificial general intelligence. Because they want to be, I have the company with the smartest people. That's where the money has been going. We are now hitting a transition, and that transition is, and I think agentic is a nice reflection of it. It's like, no. We have to figure out how to solve problems in the enterprise. And the agentic is interesting in that there's less language there, and in terms of communication, and more. And now we have to worry about control structure. We have to do old school computer science now, and that's actually going to be an interesting thing. But that's the way we hit the enterprise, because I don't think the changes will be incremental. I think we're going to see when self-driving gets finalized, truckers go away. That's it. Factory jobs are going to go away. Certain kinds of white collar will certainly go away. And the issue will be, can we actually bring these technologies into the enterprise environment and make use of all the assets we already have, and link them to these systems so that they can do the right things for us. But right now, they're really smart goofballs. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem. They're really smart goofballs, and you don't know quite when they'll be goofball-y. And as a result, you can't let them go by themselves. And the moment you let them go by themselves, and you think that because you can tell them what to do, the same way you tell someone else, a regular human being, what to do, that they're going to understand it in the same way, they won't, and they'll make mistakes. And it's okay. But we have to embrace that world of working on the integration. And I'm a fan of Chicago. Who knew? I'm a fan of Chicago, and I'm particularly a fan of Chicago in this particular moment in time. Yep. Because more than anyone else, we got companies, we got industries, we got problems. And it's not a matter of building the next biggest model. Who cares? But it's a matter of taking what we've got and harnessing it to do things for us. And just constantly ask that question, what do you need? What do you need? And how we will help you get to what you need with the technologies at hand, and we will build new things for you.
All right, Sweet Home Chicago, it's our time. Thank you, Chris. I love that. Matt, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I want to put in a plug for incrementalism. I think there is going to be a pause in technological development while new ideas are percolated but not yet deployed. And I think that what we're going to see over the next 12 months is changes in the way people interact with the AI tool, and in particular, for example, getting smarter about writing prompts. Yep. And getting smarter about having the AI tool zero in on something that's useful instead of the slop that we often see. So I think it's going to be the human element catching up to the AI, sophisticated AI technology.
Okay. Elisa, when Chris was talking about the truckers go away, the factory jobs, next thing I thought he would say, moderator job goes away. I got worried.
You're still good.
But
You're a human?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the human intelligence aspect questions, like, from the education workforce lens, which human intelligence matters more in the AI world? Like, what IQ part matters more?
I'm going to give you two very fast answers to, and this will be well under your 3-minute rule here. I will say critical discernment, contextual communication. Those are the two I think are going to matter the most.
Can you tell a little bit? I'll give you 1 more minute.
Yeah, okay. So critical discernment, being able to say, okay, using AI for X, is this the right output? Did this hallucinate? Is it accurate? One thing we talked about, right, and I'll say it differently, AI will tell you what you want to hear, what it thinks is right, with a smile that you can't see, right? And so you have to have that critical discernment and that muscle to be able to say, this seems wrong, maybe I prompted wrong, maybe, I don't know how to use this. This is why education in the AI era is so important, right? We've got to teach people how to use it well and responsibly. Contextual communication, you use it for emails, but, I see people writing out scripts for actual difficult conversations they're about to have with an employee. Like, you don't know what's going to happen on the other end of that. Yeah. Like AI, so you can't just stick to the script. You've got to think about reading a room and how you interact with that person, across the desk.
So we're not using AI for performance reviews?
No, I hope not.
It's spot on when we hire now. It isn't do you use AI or do you not use AI. It comes down to, is the individual able to spot flaws, able to think about the weakness in an argument, able to think critically about the information we're gathering. Because even in software engineering and software development, it takes seconds for Claude, for example, to generate code, right? Somebody has to look at it right now to make sure it actually does what we want it to do. And for that, you need developers to understand what good looks like, right? So being able to spot the flaws, having that attention, still think, don't let AI be your first draft, ever. That's really what it comes down to. I think that's still where people have to develop skills.
All these answers are, and then people have to be more critical. People have to understand you've got to boldface that number or Excel won't work. That's a horrible solution. It's a horrible solution. A system that is an information system that tells you what a great question that was and then gives you an answer, and when you say it's wrong, it argues with you, is not an information system. It's something else, but it's not an information system. And that's just the way they're configured today. And a demand that we actually have access to systems that are not configured to suck up, that are not configured to agree, that are not configured to make us feel good about our questions, and not configured to be engaging, which is a very sweet, lovely word for addictive. That's a demand we have to make, because it's not your job. It's not the job of people in the world to actually decide that they're going to try to make things safer on their own when we know how to make them safer. We know how to make them better. We know how to make them more effective. And it's ridiculous that, I have to admit, it's ridiculous that there are moments where it's like, that's a great idea, Chris. And it's like, you lying bastard. But yeah, I'll stay with you. Because that's what leads to, on the other side, that's a great idea, Chris. Yes, I think you should all go out and shoot all your friends. They deserve it. And Bob down the hallway in particular.
That has to be the human in the loop, the human intelligence, the IQ that has to play a critical role. Deepika, you add something?
I was just going to say, we can't forget that it's a statistical model that's just predicting what you want to hear. Right.
Exactly.
So it's weighting everything, and it's deciding this is most likely the right next word, next answer, next thing that I need to say. It is not intelligence.
Yeah, it's
that I think is the bottom line.
Yeah,
you got to know what you're dealing with.
It acts like when my wife gets ready and asks me how do I look. I need to make sure that I answer what she wants to hear. Audience questions. We can take 2 more audience questions. I saw that hand raised first. Is it the vest? Yeah. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Michael Respert, part of a cybersecurity software company called Absolute. Pleasure to meet you earlier. Comment to this remark. We are a global society. AI is not built around global data. How do you answer that question? In any employer, you could have 50 different nations represented. It's not capturing context of every country or every dialect. So as you think about that, how would you take that in DeVry or any other organization? Because we're not just all Americans who just were born in America anymore. The information is not capturing every dialect.
I'm going to quickly address that. That's a really super good point. The idea of sovereign AIs is finding a way to match the language and the culture. We work with a company because he works with students called Kilwa that is aimed at think of it as a Bloomberg for the continent of Africa. And the reason why there's not investment in Africa is not because there aren't opportunities. There are astounding opportunities. It's because there's not data. There's not information. And as he's doing this, one by one, he's talking to countries. It's like, for God's sakes, get us a sovereign AI. Some of us speak French. Some of us speak English. A lot of us don't. And we have to actually communicate with our people. It's a matter of data volume. It's a huge matter of data volume. But also thinking that what we're going to do is that is a priority. And I think that as we're looking at the world of the underrepresented, statistical systems where the only thing that mattered was scale, by their nature, will underrepresent. And deciding that we aren't going to let that, we're not going to let that hold, and actually turning it into, you build a sovereign AI for every country in Africa, oh my God, we will open up information flow, we will open up data flow, we will open up opportunities, and it becomes a huge business possibility. And going there is like super, super, super important.
Awesome. I was just given the hook that we are actually approaching time, so won't be able to take more questions, but I do have a rapid fire question round for our panelists here. Quick answers. AI will make humans more or less creative? Just go quickly on the round. More or less creative?
I'm just going to take the optimistic stance here, more creative with the caveat, got to use critical thinking.
Matt?
I'm going to say more creative eventually.
Eventually.
I think with the current configurations, not even a question, less creative. Not even a question. But those configurations just happen to be those configurations. And if we configure for support, and instead of having systems write, just having them edit and say, I'll help you improve, and decide that is what AI will do for us. It will be a partnership augmenting us as opposed to ever answering a question.
Deepika?
Right now, to Chris's point, we're less creative using AI, but it can amplify creativity if we start first.
Used right, yeah.
I just want to, again, this is a rapid fire round. I'm expecting them to answer quickly. AI will make humans smarter or lazier?
Lazier right now.
Ditto. Lazier?
Same answer. Lazier now. Imagine if you built a system. So right now AI is designed to be addictive. What a smart question. Here are three things. To pick one of them. It's an engagement model that is addictive. Imagine an engagement model that was addictive, and its goal was not to answer your questions, but to make you smarter. That's its job. Having the smartest guy in the room not saying, here's the answer, but going, so that was a good point, and I'll be nice about that. But could you rephrase it in a way that everyone could understand? And really turning it into something that is aimed at making us better. It's not designed for that, though.
Great. That was a great rapid fire answer. Thank you, Chris.
I'm sorry.
Deepika?
I agree with all of them, so you can move to your next one.
Last question, rapid fire. One AI habit that people should start or stop today?
Start integrating, and I'll give you a stop. Stop avoiding.
Stop avoiding AI. Matt?
Read. I'm going to echo everything that's been said, but read what it actually prints out, and don't get too excited when it tells you that's a good question or something. And I have to get out of the habit of replying when I'm done, thank you, to the AI bot.
And ask, please do this.
Please, right.
I think you should torture it. And what that means is, I'm sorry, it's a quick example.
No, Chris, go ahead. We learned a lot, so continue, please.
Of a friend named Jack McBrayer, who's a performer, and there was a show, and we were wondering if he was associated with the show, and so I put in the name of the show and his name in a search. I got back the Gemini summary from Google. This is like a week ago. That said, yes, he is the host. He is the host of that show. He's not. I'm not even vaguely. But the document that found had a thing of his show and the other show, and it just pulled them together. And what you want to do is you want to find those places where you can. I'm sorry, it's almost teasing it, making it do things wrong to remind yourself. It's a statistical engine. It doesn't know anything about truth or justice or the American way. All it knows about is the odds of this word being appropriate word to come next. And if you every day go, I mean, it used to be every day I'd ask for a biography of my dad because it didn't know my dad, and it would just make shit up all the time. And it was like, yes, that's right. You don't know anything, do you? And that constant reminder is a really healthy moment, because then it'll say something and it'll reward you and tell you how smart it is, and you'll go, oh my God, that's just dead wrong.
Yeah. So if you are not, then
Good
start
exercise.
questioning the answers that you get. Make sure that it's accurate. Deepika.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you the practitioner answer because I truly believe this. We need to stop fearing it
Yes.
and just having search type conversations with it, and start looking at the possibilities of what it can do for you, whether it's a little agent that can, take a task that takes you forever, that you have to do multiple times. Really start looking for what the limits are of what these AI tools can do for you from a productivity standpoint.
Awesome. So
Can I just say,
go ahead,
the genie's out of the bottle, so you have to do that. We
Yeah.
are here now, and it's just going to be more and more prevalent.
So I told you at the beginning, a researcher, an educator, a lawyer, and a practitioner walked into a bar. See what happened here. Give it up for our panel. It's an amazing panel.
And also, round of applause for our moderator, Hardik. Keep it going for him.